Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am Christian. This
Yeah.
is Nate.
Yep.
This is Unofficially Opinionated, the podcast. We took a
Yes.
break for a while, but
Yeah.
now we are back. We're just a couple guys that like to talk honestly and discuss
hmm
things
Yeah.
and share
Enlighten
our
ourselves.
opinions.
Yes.
Yes, we don't
hmm
take it too seriously. That's why we called it Unofficially Opinionated because, yeah, don't take it as gospel, but should be some fun.
It
So
is
what have
educated though.
yes, I mean mostly educated. Mostly educated.
hmm
We did take quite a break from the podcast, but we were not lax in doing nothing. We were doing a lot of like reaction content and reviews and things. So
Yep.
if you did not see any of those things and you were only here for the audio podcast, maybe go check that out on YouTube.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to see kind of what we've been doing. We've been looking at Wheel of Time. We did Good Omens, Percy Jackson, Fellow
Fellow travelers.
Travelers,
Avatar.
doing Avatar currently, and some
Yeah.
other stuff upcoming. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. It's been a while. It's
It
been a
has been.
while,
It has been. Yeah.
but it's good to be back. Good to be doing this. So today, I wonder what we're talking about, as if all of this, all of this scene doesn't make it incredibly obvious
Right.
that
Yeah.
we are here to discuss X-Men 97. So,
I mean, that's our
ugh,
springboard,
that's a
right? So
springboard, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, this is going to be kind of a dual mode podcast, part review, part discussion. We'll merge it all together.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you enjoy both pieces. If not, you can skip through or whatever you want to do. It's fine. I won't feel
Yeah.
hurt or
No.
offended.
No.
So, what is X-Men 97? For those of you that have no idea what it is, and if so, why are you here? But it's okay. We still accept
No
you.
year. Yeah. I mean, like, listen.
Yes, yes. So, back in the 90s, there was the X-Men cartoon long
Mm,
before all this MCU stuff happened or even the X-Men movies happened. There was this amazing X-Men cartoon.
it
Now,
was amazing.
I've never been like a comic reader,
Mm,
so my intro into like X-Men and really like a lot of just Marvel and comics in general was this show. I don't know about you, but it was really impactful for me. I remember, you know, because we were kind of in high school ish,
yeah. Mhm.
especially during reruns, but
Yeah.
still watching this.
Yep.
Like it
No,
was,
no, no, it's
it
true.
was a thing. It
Yes, it
was a
was.
thing.
I just remember because so like my favorite, I don't know if you had a favorite, but like my favorite, section of this show was the Phoenix saga, right? The Phoenix and a little bit of the Dark Phoenix, but it was really the Phoenix saga,
For sure.
because she was just so freaking powerful and just like I just felt it all of it.
Yes.
And I just remember being in university and having this like on replay. It was what do you call that? It was torrented,
Yeah, it
but
was not legally obtained.
no, but just having this show on repeat just like spoke to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
The intro, as far as like cartoons go,
yeah,
there are very few intros that give me the same feeling as this X-Men
yeah,
intro. There's
yep,
there's like the Batman animated series intro. Like
yeah,
that is a classic.
yeah.
And maybe something like Transformers, right? Like some like the classics, but this X-Men intro, and I'm so happy that they really kept the same one basically with like a
hmm
little bit of an update.
Yeah,
But oh my goodness. This
yeah.
this I just okay, so the show.
Oh,
So
wait, wait, wait. Speaking
yes.
of the intro, though, so there was this comedian, and I have forgotten his name, but he was on Instagram, and somebody can comment if they know who I'm talking about. Oh, I think his name starts with his like last name starts with a B. Anyways, he made this comment about how the intro to X Men is also the beat to a Whitney Houston song, which is what I was just looking up. I'm Your Baby Tonight. I don't
Oh,
know.
I think I did see that mashup
Yeah,
that someone did. Yeah,
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 right.
yeah.
And I wanted to see if we could play like side by side. I don't know if we've gotten that, but you just mentioned that, and I was like, oh yeah. So it was
Right. Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah.
eerily, similar. So
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. As are many things in this music
yeah,
world. It's funny, like, there's so much kind of borrowing in that way. People are
yeah,
like, "Oh, you copied." It's not copying. It's not much new as far as
yeah,
sound, right?
right,
So, we're always
yeah,
borrowing and remixing and redoing, but yes, yes, yes. Oh, I don't know how you felt because so we had a thought to actually 'cause since we've been doing all these reactions to do reaction to the show,
yeah,
but we came to the conclusion that in order to have an interesting reaction, like we have to kind of engage with the audience a little bit. And we
right,
were like, we just wanted to sit here and just freak out and
yeah,
just
yeah.
enjoy the show. So
And talk about freak out, okay?
uh yeah, oh so much. So just in case you haven't watched the show, spoilers ahead, right?
Yeah,
We're gonna be spoiling
yeah,
it quite a bit. Um Again, I'm not gonna get into all that happened because it was a lot.
yeah,
But man, so what happens is basically what they did was they didn't want to like remake the show. So
right,
essentially, X-Men 97, as it's called, takes up, it starts right after the original series ended. So
mhm,
it's same timeline, same time period. So it's taking place again back in the 90s.
right.
I thought was an interesting choice, just kind of pick up, continue. What did you think about that choice, I guess, versus them kind of either rebooting it or kind of just like starting it now and trying to kind of explain some of the history of it?
Well, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm not, like, the hugest, yeah, comic fan either, right? And animated series either, but, like, I know that they had X-Men different X-Men series come in, like, afterwards, right? They had
Yeah.
different types, and none of them did very well because I don't know, I was personally disenchanted with all of them. I think I might
Yeah.
have seen 2 episodes
Yeah, I
of
think there was
each
like X-Men
series.
Evolution was one, and then
Yeah.
there's like Wolverine and the X-Men, I think was another
Yeah,
one.
yeah, there was some stuff, and I just was not interested in it, and I didn't watch the whole series. But this one, I mean, first of all, the original was told so well. The animation wasn't like it was great for its time, but it wasn't like it
I
was
wouldn't even
like,
say that, Nate. It was
are you kidding me? No, it was very like He-Man, for its, so it was like I mean, the stories were great. I mean, already okay, so listen, already the X-Men story, and I think that's something we're going to talk about later, but it's already very poignant,
Mhm.
right? But then, in addition to that, the animation was actually pretty. It was pretty good for its time. For the 90s, it was actually pretty good, right? It wasn't like top notch, but it also wasn't like skipping frames or, stuff
I'll
like
say
that.
just go back and look at that last season again when they lost more funding. It was,
Oh.
let's just say, oh my goodness, looking at it now, I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
But,
maybe. I
yes.
didn't notice. But the fact that they, like, picked up, where they left off is cool because then we can actually kind of finish the story. But when I wasn't expecting it to go. I feel like it's gone so fast in just
They
one
did.
season. They just ramped through with just a ton of things, but the story was told like it kept you on your toes. It kept me on my toes at least. Like I was just like, what is going on? Like the
Yeah.
very first episode was already like, what? And then just one thing after another. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't like the next I felt like watching and I didn't watch the series in its entirety, but like Game of Thrones, where you're just like, you never know who's gonna die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so much drama, so much happening, and again, it's only 10 episodes, and they really did speed through some storylines from the comics.
Yeah.
Because I'm the type of person that I would watch the episode, and then I
Hmm.
would go on YouTube and I watch Screen Crush and I watch who else I watch? Heavy Spoilers, and I watch the breakdowns of every episode to understand what's going on. Because again, I don't read all of it, but I do want to
Hmm.
know what's happening. So
Right.
I'd be
Yeah.
watching all this stuff, trying to figure out like who's this and what's happening and the backstory and
Yeah.
all this stuff with Inferno and Madeline Pryor and
Yeah.
clones and Mr. Sinister.
Oh
It's
my
been so
goodness.
crazy. But yeah, it looks so much better now. The drama is just it's really a soap opera. There's like all these love
Yes.
triangles
Precisely.
and
Yeah.
unrequited love and
Yeah. Speaking of
oh
that, like, did you? I'm sure you've seen because I'm not up to date on like everything. Like, I'm not. Like reading up all on the spoilers or anything like that. But there was was it the last episode or the second to last episode? I can't remember where Morph was like talking to Wolverine, and he was like, she can't say it, but I can, and then he morphed,
yeah.
and then everybody was like, oh my goodness, and that's what I thought when I saw it. I was like, is he confessing his love to, or they're actually non-binary, right? So
Right.
like, are they confessing their love to
That's what
Wolverine, and then the
was
director or
not
whatever?
clear.
But he said it was afterwards,
Mm.
like, or whoever it was. I don't know who it was, but confirmed that he was actually, or that more. Sorry, they were confessing their feelings to Wolverine, and like I'm wondering how that would like sit because we've only ever known Wolverine to be what we consider a hetero.
Yeah.
Like he's
I don't
only
know.
ever shown to
Ugh,
be loving women.
right. And the other
Like
piece of that, oh yeah,
no,
just thinking about that, like even with that Jean Grey thing,
hmm
in the original series, again, to me, it was always very one-sided,
yes,
right?
that's always what it seemed
But
like. Yeah.
this series, we do see it's not one-sided. Now, yes, she loves Cyclops and she's with Scott, right? But
hmm
she does have feelings for Logan,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
hmm
which I was just not prepared for. I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, like, she actually does care for him. She's
hmm
just not with him. She's with the other guy."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oof."
I do feel like in the comics, and someone correct me if I'm wrong. I know my brother could. He is just like a massive X-Men nerd, but I do feel like in the comics they did have something going on for a little bit of time. You know, so that might be what they're drawing from. The fact that there was a thing that they, I guess, maybe not going to develop on it. But yeah, that's why they're showing, yes, she did have some sort of feelings
Yeah,
for
I love it.
for
I love
Wolverine.
all the
So
messiness.
yeah. But
Ugh,
that speaks to the human nature anyways. Like it's never cut and dry. Like humans love cut and dry, and it is never the case.
yes. I mean, there's
So
so much that happened then with Rogue and Magneto and
oh yeah,
Gambit
and
and
Gambit,
all of
yeah.
that
Oh my
situation was
that also
messy,
was
and then
messy, yeah.
Cyclops with Madeline and Jean, like,
Yeah.
how is it that how I don't know how you mentally even handle
Yeah.
you've been with
Tricked.
your wife's clone for not
Yeah.
but you don't know how long it was, but you do have a
Right.
baby together. That much you know
Yeah.
is true.
Some craziness.
And
That's
then he
some
was kinda
craziness.
cheating telepathically not cheating, is it cheating? I don't know, but
You
he
said
was
she
having
was or he
he
was?
Scott was, so after Jean came back, he was
Yeah.
having kind of conversations telepathically with Madeline Pryor still, and
Oh,
Jean was
I
like, "That
I
was
didn't catch
our
that.
thing, like, what do you" he was like, I'm sorry,
I
I don't"
mean, but after you spent and had kids
Ugh,
with this man, with this woman, like, yeah,
right,
you can't just break that apart.
and they're the
Like,
same.
yeah,
I'm like,
right. Like it's your mind really trying to like bend around the fact that
ah,
this is the same person, but not. And then like,
right.
how do you make that different? I don't know.
I don't even know
It was
how you
messy.
deal with
Yeah.
that, and then Jean has Madeline's memories as well, and
Yeah.
so she's remembering, like, having the child, but she didn't really have the child.
Yeah,
People it
that's
was look,
painful.
we could get into all the
Okay.
details of all the drama. Like, go watch it. It is I'll say it's one of my favorite things I've watched, like,
hmm
period. Like, of
Yeah.
all the things that I've seen, it's top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
So do you have any particular I guess, what was your kind of favorite storyline as far as when you watched the show? Anything pop out kind of that
Yeah.
you
I
really
think
enjoyed?
I think my favorite was Storm when she lost her powers. Because Storm has always been, and I kind of, I have this vague recollection that Storm was like an icon for the queer community as well, but I'm not really sure, so someone can correct me. But anyways, I always had an affinity towards Storm. I always felt like she was super powerful when the original show came out, but they always made her seem so weak, and I was so angered by that because like I'm just like, this woman controls the weather. Like she was like, I wouldn't say she was my favorite X-Men. I don't even know if I actually have a favorite X-Men, but she was always just like, I don't know. I just, she was, she's from Africa, from where I can't remember, but she's like from Africa. I think she even has a son who is a mutant, Spike, I think it was, or whatever, who has the bones that grow out of
All
his
right.
whatever. Um, I don't know if his name is Spike, but whatever. Anyways, so when she lost her powers, and then so she just like left, like I was feeling that pain, and then she had to go through that drama. So she went into the machine. That Forge had created, um, and tried to restore her powers, but it didn't. And when she started having like these hallucinations with that, I forgot what the name of the beast was. Like I
The
immediately
adversary,
said, I
yeah.
was watching it with my friend, with my roommate, and I said, "Oh, she." I was like, "Oh, the machine did work," and he was like, "Did it?" And I was like, "Yes." This is her having to mentally reclaim her powers back. Like I mean, I don't know if it's like a trope, but I immediately saw that and I was like, "Oh
Right.
crap, this is great because yeah, you can have your powers back, but like if you don't want them or if you don't I'm a life coach, so this is really like this is my jam, right? But you have that ability, but if you don't want it, you're never going to act on it. If you don't fight for it, you're never going to, whatever. And then there was these awesome memes. I think I shared them with you where it was like, oh no, I shared it with my friend, but it was like 6 panels of like Storm, and uh Storm was like, "What happened? I was only gone for 5 minutes." What did she say? Where is like Gambit is dead? Why is Professor Xavier back? Madeline who? And then it was like 5 damn minutes.
Yeah,
Like,
a lot
everything changed,
happened,
and
right?
just in the time that she was going to get her powers back. So like that was probably my favorite storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it was I'm gonna have to pick 2 things, but one is I really enjoyed Magneto's story because
Mhm.
I have always felt like he was always partially right.
Yes.
His
Mhm.
methods are a bit extreme and he has somewhat of an anger problem.
Yes.
But he's not completely wrong. And so seeing him on the side of right for a
Mhm.
bit was good. I really enjoyed the scene where he takes like the UN council up into the sky and basically is like, look, like I'm gonna try to do this the right way, right?
Yeah.
Don't make me disappoint you, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like we can do this,
Mhm.
but if you don't cooperate, this is gonna go terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yeah.
Like he basically shuts down the whole world's electromagnetic field, like
Yeah.
just goes off when Genosha is attacked. But that
But I
that was
mean, with
so
just cause,
brutal.
like, I mean, just, commenting on that, like, he's had to face that twice now, right? Genocide. He's had to face
Hmm.
that now twice in his life. Already one time is, I mean, granted, they're comics, but also real life, right? Kind of real to life scenarios, right? So y- he's like, you cannot expect somebody to have gone through, I mean, already he does look good for someone who's had to deal with that once in his life, and having to deal with that, and you can't expect somebody to come through to live with that in addition to being a mutant, so being outcast for being a mutant, and then have it happen again when these people promised that it wouldn't. They were trying to go for peace or whatever. um and then having them wiped out. Granted, it wasn't the UN's fault technically
Right.
for that,
Yeah.
but
I mean, which is where he kind of veers off a little bit. He just blames like all humanity. Like,
everybody, yes,
okay, some of y'all are bad, so all y'all are trash. Like,
right,
goodbye.
hmm,
Right.
yeah,
Which is kind of what leads can lead to some of our conversation around like tolerance is extinction, right?
right,
if we tolerate y'all, then we don't get to live. So
Right.
I'm done tolerating this. Like it's
Right.
over.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah. And then the other piece that I really enjoyed was, Charles Xavier's kind of storyline where when he was with the Shi'ar and they're all fighting, and you forget sometimes because he's so restrained with his power,
Yeah.
like how powerful his mind really is.
Mhm.
Where he literally, they're all fighting, and he just with his mind like stops all of them,
Yeah.
takes them to the astral plane, and like literally has them sitting in the classroom for school, like to explain to
Yeah.
them like what's going on. Like, look, let me take y'all to school for real. And they just are
Right.
like, what? Like he just did that, just, drop
Yeah.
of a hat, and how like that's really, to be not to be cliche, but his superpower really is like his ability to like use his words and like talk to people and like
Yeah.
educate them and teach them and try to get them to understand and do the right thing.
Mhm.
And even that, as we saw in the end, breaks down a little bit. Like he had to
Yeah.
kind of abandon it for a second, and that's what's going to be interesting to see the fallout of this in season 2
Yeah.
because he and the Magneto both kind of took the gloves
Lost their
off,
minds. Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
like
Yeah.
Charles took over Magneto's mind and forced him to do something which
Mhm.
he would never do.
Right.
And Magneto kind of broke their gentleman's agreement
Mhm.
and snatched Wolverine's skeleton out of his body. Now, granted,
Yeah.
the dude did stab him trying to kill
I was
him.
gonna say, yeah, because he kinda
Um,
and he was
but
already, I mean, Magneto was already on the edge, but, like,
yeah,
Wolverine thinks everyone's the enemy anyway, so, like, it's really
yeah, it was. But I was like, wow, like everybody is just kind of at their wits' end at the
Yeah.
end of it, and they're doing the thing that they kind of always believed they wouldn't do, or at least intended to not do.
Yeah.
And now it's been done.
Mhm.
And now they're strewn across time, and it looks like Apocalypse is coming back, and who
Yep.
knows what else.
Oh my
I feel
goodness.
like maybe Kang as well. I don't know, but
Mhm.
I am just, I'm
That's
so
yeah.
here for all of it. I love it so
Yep.
much. I can't wait. I wish all the MCU was like this. Like the storytelling was great, animation was great.
Yeah.
I just and I don't know, and I guess I could go look why Bo DeMaio, the showrunner, was fired. I don't recall why.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but that aside, he did a great job with this.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I,
Yeah.
I can't knock what he did as far as this product is concerned.
Yeah.
He did that. It
Yeah.
is just and it's not and it's so well done in that it's not like it was just playing off nostalgia and whatever. Like
Mhm.
it has something for everybody. The old school
Yeah.
fans, people that are really into the comics, all these deep cut stories they went through, and then
Yeah.
new stuff. And so everybody's still surprised. It's teasing for season 2,
Yep.
but it's not really like a too bad of a cliffhanger. Just the whole thing was just like, ugh,
Yeah.
I can't say enough how much
Chef's kiss.
I love all of this. Ugh, I love it. I love
I
it.
agree, I agree. I was kind of skeptical at the when it was when it was announced. You had told me about it, and I was like, "What? No, what?" So, I was kinda skeptical because, reboots aren't always, legit, but this wasn't a reboot per se, like, it was just a continuation, but those are also not often highly lauded, but this was I was so impressed. We were so like it's been a while that I have actually waited with anticipation the next episode, you know? Like, I mean, I feel like the last time that that ever happened for me was like Smallville or but like before the first like 5 maybe seasons or something like that. Or maybe Roswell. I don't know if Roswell came after that, but that was it. Like after that it's all just been blasé, but this was actually really good. So,
Yes, 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 yes. And it's
but
just, uh,
then also just one more thing was like I knew Phoenix had to come back, right? Because they were saying Phoenix is gone. And I was like, Phoenix is not gone. Phoenix cannot be destroyed. Um, and she came back, and I told you I said this in our streaming. So if you all want to check out our streaming, we stream Diablo, and one of my favorite things about the show was that they've made the women stronger instead
Oh,
of
yeah.
fainting after using their powers, you know? So,
Right.
like, and that's a very irritating situation for me because why you make it to seem like the women can't control or
Right.
use their powers? Like, stop, you know? But the Phoenix came out and she did. That was the first time I saw Jean Grey, like, collapse, but she didn't like collapse. It was just because you also understand the Phoenix is an incredibly strong
Right.
power, So yeah, when she's like, I don't know, not possessed by it or whatever they call it, whatever, and then she leaves, yeah, that makes sense that, she has to regain her strength,
Yeah.
and it wasn't severe, so I was appreciative of that. So
Yeah, yeah, the strength. I mean, yeah, Jean Grey using her powers, even when she used her brain to interrogate, what was it Gyrick when he was in prison? And she was basically looking through his mind from the X mansion, right? When they were trying to interrogate him to figure out where Trask was.
oh, right, okay, yes,
Yeah, like
okay,
that whole
yes.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
you don't worry about us. He's like, what do
Yeah.
you mean? He's like, ah. I was like, what? Like, and then when the whole Summers family in that car scene, that was
Yeah, that was
amazing.
funny, that
Ugh.
was funny,
I
yeah.
mean, Rogue Wrecking Shop, like
Oh my goodness, Rogue.
she
Oh, I
was
love her.
just,
She was angry.
I
I feel
mean,
like she could have been
angry isn't even
angrier.
covered. Like she was just like both my men. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. She was done. She was done. I mean, one of my favorite things, so many favorite things, but when she took Captain America's shield, as I said
Yeah,
before, and she
just
just chucked it
yeeted.
into the mountains, she's like, ugh, just gone. Just like, really?
Yeah, she did, yeah.
Like, why you gotta do that to him? Like, what
I
what are you
mean,
doing?
he's a what do you call that? Boy Scout. Like, come on, Mount, do something. I'm sorry, I can't. I
Right.
can't. But I think what was interesting about their interaction is he couldn't because of kind of the what he represented. What Captain America represented, and he couldn't show that he was approving of Rogue, but I think the fact that he did nothing and the way he looked indicates that he was happy that she could. I mean, her name is Rogue, right? So like she was able to do the thing that he would wanted to do, but he couldn't because of what he represented. Which
Yeah.
I think that's a talking point in and of itself, but whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, this, I mean, we get to go on for 5 hours talking about this whole
Yeah,
show and never
yeah.
run out. But, the one thing that the X-Men comic and just the story of it has always had in it is just this idea of kind of, the struggle, representation. There's always this tinge of either LGBTQ plus rights or racial rights. All that's kind of been part of the story even for a while. Even if you remember, um, in the live action X-Men, when I don't know if you recall it, they showed the scene a lot where Iceman is talking to his parents, and they're
Hmm.
basically like, "Have you tried not being a mutant?"
Oh, okay, yeah,
Like this.
yeah.
You can really feel kind of the undertones of like, "Have you tried not being this?" Like, and he's
Yeah,
like, "It's who I am.
yeah,
Like, I can't not do
right.
this."
Mhm.
And so that whole thing just I think makes the whole show just so relevant just across time for so many people. And that's
Yeah.
why we want to talk today just about the idea of, tolerance is extinction. And we first hear that, I think it was Gyrick when he was in prison. He's talking about from the perspective of humanity
Mhm,
that, if humanity tolerates mutants, right,
mhm.
humanity will essentially go extinct because they're just
Right,
going to overtake us and they're stronger than us. And so we'll just go away. So we can't, allow them to remain.
right.
And then kind of from Magneto's side, I think it's kind of a similar thing. Whereas, you can look at it two ways. Either them tolerating us,
Mhm.
right, will lead to our extinction,
Right,
or us tolerating them will lead to our extinction. Either
right.
way, both sides kind of view it as us being tolerant of the other side means we lose, right?
Yeah.
All of us
S
can't win, only one side can win. Whereas Charles is trying to make everyone kind of live together.
Mhm,
Magneto's always kind of been like, it's a fairy tale, like it's a
mhm.
zero sum game. Either we win or they win. Both can't
A
win.
And what do you think about that concept of, because tolerance, yeah, what do you think about that concept of like tolerance? Like what that means in for X-Men and just in real life.
So I pulled up some definitions of tolerance just so we can kind of
Okay.
look at it, just to see like what it means because I know people use the word a lot, but
Yeah.
like, what are we talking about? So
Right.
let's talk about tolerance. So I've got some definitions here. I'll pull them up on the screen real quick. So one of them, so tolerance, the ability or willingness to tolerate something, in particular, the existence of opinions or behavior that one does not necessarily agree with. Right.
Okay. Mhm.
We've got another one here. It says the capacity to endure continued subjection to something, especially like a drug or a transplant or antigen or environmental condition without adverse reaction. That one doesn't really apply necessarily, but it is
Okay,
kind
yeah.
of, constantly being exposed to something, but not kind of having a negative reaction to it.
Right.
Um, Now look at the word tolerate, right? So what does it mean to tolerate something? Allow the existence, this interesting word is allow, right?
Mhm.
Allow the
Yeah.
existence, occurrence, or practice of something that does not necessarily you don't necessarily like or agree with without interference. So I'm allowing this thing to exist
Mhm.
without interfering with it, even though I don't agree with it.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Another definition of tolerate is kind of to accept or endure. Again, endure is an interesting word.
Yeah.
Someone or something unpleasant or disliked with forbearance, right? And this last one is again similar to what we saw before, was kind of being capable of continued subjection to something without adverse reaction to it.
Right.
Um,
And I just looked up what forbearance means: patience, self-control, restraint, and intolerance.
right.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think what's interesting to me is the idea of, especially when we saw the word allow,
Mhm. Yeah.
um, and kind of endure and allow to exist. Um, Tolerate can, I think, be both a positive and a negative,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know. How do you feel about the word tolerate? I guess now that we've kind of described what tolerate means, like
Yeah.
is tolerance, is that a good thing, or is tolerance a bad thing?
Tolerance is neutral regardless of the definition until you put it into the minds of a human. Right? So it's really the human that is going to make that an issue, right? And as it is now, tolerance is a bad thing. So it started off being an okay thing, right? Because you're like, you tolerate it until you kind of understand it. And then you stop tolerating it and you begin to accept it if it's a something that is, good, or, something that's not bad, negative, or causing harm or something like that.
Right,
But people kind of stopped at this whole idea of just tolerate it, right? Which then starts breeding resentment. It causes for the ability to just become more, more and more enraged as you start thinking about it, more and more, or sorry, more and more often. You start being like, well, I've tolerated this as is you're like, the what's the term? You're the authority, I suppose, on being able to say whether enough is enough or something like that. And that's what we see in X-Men, is that they're getting to this point where they're saying enough is enough. That's not where tolerate is supposed to be. Tolerate tolerate is supposed to be the situation where, yeah, you don't know enough information about it, so you just don't say anything until you understand what the scenario is, and then then you're able to make a decision. So tolerate could be where you're just finally allowing the person, or the group of people or whatever, and be like, okay, we don't agree with this um because X, Y, and Z, for whatever. Hopefully it's a good reason. But when it comes to like a group of people, you cannot tolerate a group of people. You either like, I mean, you can tolerate them for like I was saying, for a time being, but at some point in time, you've got to make a decision. Otherwise, it's going to make a decision for you. That's what I'm thinking. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but that's how it feels.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about tolerating people, right? Because it's one thing to tolerate like a behavior, right? Or right, a behavior I think to tolerate is one thing, but it gets more muddy when the behavior is essential to the person. Because tolerating a person, I think always feels bad for the person, right? Because tolerate something is already making a judgment about the thing, right? It's either I don't like it
Hmm.
or it's unacceptable, but I'm going to ignore that, right?
Hmm.
Either for now or forever, right? And so
Right.
I think to your point, you know, like just thinking about the US and civil rights and things, having the country say tolerate black people having equal rights
Hmm.
is not the goal and is not
No.
sustainable,
No.
right? Because I feel like if you are having to tolerate something, um, if you don't eventually move to acceptance, I feel like you'll move to resentment.
Well, that's my point. That's
You know?
precisely my point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's just it's not tenable because
No.
tolerating does take some effort. Even looking
Yes.
at the definition where it's like I'm tolerating, say, this particular drug, right?
Hmm.
Like if your body is tolerating it, it's doing something to like
Hmm.
maintain homeostasis. It's
Right.
able
Yeah.
to do it,
Hmm.
but it is costing something. And
Right.
so if I have to keep tolerating this thing, maybe it's probably safer for the thing to not exist,
Right.
right? Versus me
Yeah.
constantly fighting to
Hmm.
be okay with this thing. And
Right.
I think both sides, as far as X-Men, kind of in some ways are kind of getting worn down and tired
Hmm.
of the fight,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Like it's this constant, from the human side, they kind of have this constant fear of being replaced,
Right.
which is so poignant these days,
Yeah.
right? Especially in this
Yeah.
country of people coming to replace us, right? I
Yes.
say us speaking for the country, not me, because I
Right.
don't feel that way because
Right.
um
Yeah.
but yeah, like you constantly feel that way. And after a point, you're like, I'm tired of feeling this fear,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And so, how do I get rid of the fear? Well, the one way is to get to the root of the fear
Mhm.
and understand, right? The other way is get rid of the thing that you're afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, and that is the issue because like you said, like, okay, so for example, if we apply this to like we can apply it to, so both of us belong to the, Black or African American community, and I belong to the LGBTQ plus community. So we can apply this um, to both of those communities, effectively. If you for some reason were indoctrinated with, Black people are dangerous, right, or they're lazy, or whatever the situation is, I could understand being able to, like, you know tolerate, like, be like, okay, well, let me see for myself if this is the case, or like LGBTQ plus people are, what do you call that, like, are, what are they, groomers, or if they are, what do they call that, when they're trying to, like, indoctrinate the kids and stuff like that. I forgot, there was some term, I guess, that they were using, so I could
Right.
understand, like, needing, as someone who is unfamiliar with these communities, needing more information and stuff, like, I can understand that, but um and it happens every time, like when something new, well, for you is new, you know. So for example, I belong to the LGBTQ plus community, but I was very ignorant on trans, um you know, trans people just in general, like, how they feel, who they are, and non-binary and also intersex. Like, I was just very ignorant. Like, I didn't realize how, narrow my focus was only on, gay and lesbian kind of rights or whatever. So, then the trans movement started, and I'm just like, well, let me understand about what's going on, what how they feel and stuff like that. And that's, I think that's what people prefer. Like, we don't want you just blindly accept it, understand where we're coming from so that you are informed. You can make an informed decision because that's what you really want. You want information to back up your, passion behind this, because so that when you're fighting, you're educated and you're able to educate, other people. But then, like you said, if these people, like in X-Men, or these people like in the US, they're not looking for further education, because if they were, this whole idea of tolerance would be gone. If you were looking for education, if you sought to understand if these people were, these different communities were dangerous or not and stuff like that, then you would already come to the conclusion that they're not dangerous. We're not dangerous. You know, I mean, every single community has dangerous people, but that doesn't mean the community is dangerous. It's
Right.
just the way it is. So that's why, like in X-Men, it's the same thing. They're not looking to be like Xavier. He's looking to consolidate this, to get rid of tolerance, and so that everyone is consolidated. But I think he's also going about it the wrong way. He's going about it way too diplomatically, because he's trying to speak their language, but the problem is they're not listening to you. So you can't assume, if it hasn't worked for all these years, you can't assume that it's going to work in another few. Like, something needs to change, basically. You know. So that's my rant.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so that, you know, thinking about it, right? We'll take it out of the fantastical into the real.
Hmm.
If you're part of a community that is being tolerated,
Hmm.
right? I guess I'll take it back to the show a little bit. Like, this is why at one point Magneto had a whole asteroid where he just wanted to take the mutants to, right? Like,
Right.
we don't want to be tolerated. We just want to live free.
Right.
So we're gonna go here.
Hmm.
Also, they had a whole country of Genosha where they
Yeah.
could just live and just be and not have to think about this tolerance thing.
Right.
And when that got taken, it was just so crushing. Like, we finally had a place where we could just not have to think about being tolerated,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then this happens, like, I'm just trying to think, like, it is it is mentally tiring and hurtful to be tolerated,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
How do you get in a good mental space? Because we don't want to be bitter like Magneto. We don't want
Right.
to give people, and again, it's not the victim's fault, but we don't want to give people more reason to be intolerant,
Hmm.
right? It's very
Hmm.
easy to, you don't want to tolerate me? Well, fine. Like, oh, I'm the bad guy, then you
Right.
be the bad guy.
Hmm.
Right. And
Yeah.
then you just kind of like feed into it, right? Like,
Right.
well, if you don't
Hmm.
think I can do better anyway, then why
Yeah.
try? Like, I'm just gonna
Hmm.
do I'm the boogeyman, I'll be the boogeyman then, and we'll just
Right.
always live like this. How do you,
Hmm.
any thoughts on how to have a better mental space, right, while waiting for people to move from tolerance to acceptance?
I believe that it has to be in your heart, right? So as a human, so in the you know the, what we consider reality, in the real world, it has to be in your heart, your soul. you know so you have to have already decided to go, maybe spiritual or biblical or whatever. um kind of have to have that mentality, where Job was like, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. You know, um, though they destroy me, I will still be the person that I am. I will still be loving and supportive. They can, you know, destroy me however they want to be, however they want to, but I will still, love them. And if they have need of, food or something, I will feed them. Um, don't think that that means be a doormat, which Christians tend to kind of become. They think that that's what that means. And I don't think that that means that either. But I do think it's really a has it comes from the heart. And what you're really hoping is that you end up meeting someone else that's on the other side who also has an open heart, who is like, no, I want to know the truth. When they know the truth, it becomes a part of them. It's not, I'm doing this for, show, or I'm doing this because it needs to be done, or it should be done, or because someone told me it should be done. It's, I am this way, and therefore I'm going to continue. Yeah, it's still tempting. It's still tempting to want to just like rage out, and get upset. And those are when it happens. When that happens, you need to be able to talk to somebody. You need to be able to express it, like get it out of your system, because you don't want it boiling up inside you. So I talk to God about it, but whatever it is that you want to do, you got to get it out of your system so it does not become your personality. You let your personality be, I'm just going to remain this way. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I find that, it's very easy for people who have been tolerated to become intolerant. In that they get very much so, um, it's very easy for, like, a black person to get very intolerant of someone saying all lives matter, right? I disagree with that, right? But if I'm to the point of trying to shut down someone's ability to say this or heckle some, I'm like, it's out of kind of that frustration of being tolerated, then I'm now becoming intolerant of other opinions and other ways of being, right? Like, I'm not even looking to understand, hey, why do you believe this thing that I think is detestable, right? Because at the end of the day, there is a reason. Now, it may be a bad reason, it may be an incorrect understanding, but there is something there that we can communicate on and try to understand, right? Um, but intolerance tends to shut down your brain and you don't hear, right? And so I just think it's important to just remember, um, not to become intolerant as a tolerated kind of person or group or whatever, right? It's it's unfortunate that you kind of have to keep, I guess to your point, keep in mind kind of the end goal, right? Like,
Yes,
the end goal is acceptance on both sides, right? It's not
precisely. Yeah.
about like trying to win or trying to defeat you or trying to get on top so now I'm in charge and I can
Right.
do it to you what you were doing to me.
Hmm.
Another piece is that, it's I was just thinking about this when you were talking, is that looking back at the definitions of kind of allow and endure, right? People can control your access to things, right? They can control maybe your mobility as far as society is concerned, but they don't control like your worth, right? Like, them not accepting you had nothing to do with you. That has to do with them, you know? So I think it's just, for people to remember, hey, look, like, someone not accepting you, that's a them problem, right? Yes, maybe they can keep you from getting a job or maybe cause, issue for you online, but yeah, sure.
It's all good. Sorry about that.
All good, all good. We'll fix it in the edit. But yeah, it's just thinking about it, like people it's very it's I'm not saying it's an easy thing, right? To try to not internalize someone else's opinion of you. Um, but I do think it's important to just remember, right? Like that's their opinion. Um, and that doesn't affect your worth and it doesn't affect who you are. Um, we can work to help them understand, but if they
Yes.
don't,
Hmm.
um, we keep trying.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately this world is very messy and it may be a long time. But I think the alternative is we all become intolerant and we destroy each other, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Everything
that's
gets
not what.
destroyed.
Right.
And that's I think not what we're looking for either.
Yeah. Hey, get your geek on. Welcome.
Hey, what's up? Glad you joined us. What's going on? Any thoughts on tolerance you want to share in the chat, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I do really agree with what you were saying about, you don't want to become intolerant, and that's really why it's easy. Um, there is this saying in there's this text in the Bible and like in the New Testament where it's like um and it's always like plays in the back of my head where it's like it's like I think it's in Revelation where it's like if it were possible it would deceive the very elect, right? So like that always reminds me that it absolutely is eventually possible for someone to just get pushed too far, you know? Um, and I don't really know how to protect against that except to really just keep your mind on, like you were saying, the end goal, really what you want to achieve. It's extremely easy to just be like, yeah, I've had enough to just do a total Magneto thing, and you
Yeah,
would find yourself. I mean, I find Magneto justified, you know. So, like, I mean, justified to a certain extent. Like, I
right.
understand where his anger is coming from. I
Yeah,
understand where, he thinks, this is we've got to just kind of wipe them out. I understand. I don't agree with it, but I understand where he's coming from. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Get Your Geek On was saying that, I love the show. It created such a dialogue over these issues and somehow shows both sides of the tolerance issue in a way that truly makes you question your beliefs. Yeah, and I really always enjoy watching content. I think that's also why I really enjoy this show is I like content that is trying to say something. I mean, I always agree with what it's saying, but that it's trying to say something, I think speaks to me, right? Like
yeah,
what's the show trying to say? What's it trying to do? It's not just pew 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 and cool graphics and stuff happening,
right,
right? Like what's the substance? Like what are you saying?
right.
And I
Hmm.
do think it does highlight without saying everything is equivalent, but hey, look, like there are two sides of this, and this
Hmm.
is why a person may be reacting a certain way because they're feel like they're tolerated, and you
Right,
saying you tolerate them is not what you think it means necessarily, right?
right.
If
Hmm.
if you sit and stay in that,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
tolerance is not the destination,
No,
right?
it's not.
It's
It's
really the starting point. It's the
precisely.
point of
Hmm.
the truest sense, like the ignorance point. Like, hey,
Right.
I don't understand this.
Hmm.
I don't like this,
Right. Or I'm
but
scared,
right, or scared. I'm going
Mhm.
to withhold judgment. I'm going
Right.
to not bother this thing. I'm gonna let this thing be
Mhm.
while I work out
Yeah.
understanding it
Mhm.
and how to kind of come to acceptance. But
Yeah. But
um
you've gotta be willing to do the work. You've gotta be willing, and I think that's what makes the difference is that you've gotta you've got to desire to actually consider it. You can't just be like, push it away sort of thing and be like, maybe it'll rectify itself, especially when it comes to a human, because they're not going away, you know? Um, and it's new. And I always find it's very interesting how people are so adverse to kind of like to new understandings of human nature, right? Because it's so, for me, it's so cool and so like different. It shows that we're so much like there's so many nuances to us, and we're so like there's like when I found out. So I was on YouTube and saw this video of this a guy who was born intersex. And for those who don't know, the old word that we used to use is hermaphrodite. um and for I didn't look up the technical definition of intersex, but someone who has both male and female, or what we consider male and female kind of genitalia in whatever aspect that is. And so this guy on YouTube, he identifies fully as a male, but when he was brought up, because he had a um because he had a vagina, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the situation. He was brought up as a woman,
Mhm.
right? As a female. Um, and for him growing up, he didn't feel like he felt like he was both male and female, right? Um, so sometimes he felt more masculine. That's what he was saying. And then sometimes he felt more feminine, until he got to this point where he realized that men, this is what he said in his experience. Like he got to the point where he realized that men were treated better than women. So then he made the full transition to be a man. And so now he identifies as a man. But he had like surgery and stuff like that. Um, but anyways, so listening to his story, it was like quite question and answer. Listening to his story was just extremely fascinating. I didn't know about this. So then I started doing research about, intersex and how they kind of feel about it. Do they feel like and some of them do feel like both man and women. So like, um whereas transgender are usually born in one, what we consider like male or female. So they're born in what we consider one gender, and then they transition to um, another gender. This person is born technically both genders, from what I understand. So, like, educate me more if I'm missing something like very pertinent. But they're born birth both male and female, um, and some of them actually just identify as both male and female, and they have the features of both male and female, which was absolutely fascinating to me. Like I was just like, that is so cool. Like,
Mhm.
but it just shows how fascinating the human nature is, and because of religion, we have a tendency, people have a tendency to be like, oh well, it's like an abomination. It's because of sin. I don't think it is. To be honest, I don't think so at all. I think it's because that's how we are created. We're just so naturally diverse. It makes sense. You look at all the flowers that exist, the different types of flowers, the different types of birds that exist, stuff like that. Some of them we genetically modified, but other ones, where they came about because of just cross pollination, you know because of birds and stuff like that, or they just we discover new plants, like in the Caribbean and stuff like that, that we never seen before or whatever. It's just because it's just because that's how they were created, you know. And we see now that human skin can adapt to the conditions that they're in, get lighter if there's not enough sun, get darker if there is, stuff like that. Like that's so fascinating, and I don't understand why people, instead of finding it so fascinating, well, I do understand why, mostly because of religion, but why they put up such a barrier to understand, to know it, so like I don't know, humans are crazy.
Yeah, it's very easy to be afraid of what you don't understand, right? And
Yes.
also to be afraid of not understanding. right? I
Yeah.
think people aren't comfortable living in a kind of a gray area about something,
Yeah.
or having a not solid opinion about something,
Mhm.
or having a
Yeah.
complicated opinion even. Everyone wants to
Yeah.
have kind of a
Clear
black and white
cut.
opinion about
Yep.
everything, right? Like,
Yes.
"Hey, should we have more immigrants in the US? Yes or no?" Right?
Right.
Well, like, it's okay to have a complicated opinion about this and not be
Yeah.
able to even fully explain it. Like, "Hey,
Right.
look, I'm not sure how I really understand this, but I know this piece I don't like, this piece I do like, and I kinda feel like," and I think if we could all get together and be like, "Hey, look, I don't fully even understand how I feel about it. I don't fully
Mhm.
understand it, but look, let's talk through this and figure out
Right.
what we can do," versus I'm fully convinced of my opinion
Mhm.
and the facts of this,
Yeah.
and I am right, and
Yeah,
you are
where did
wrong.
that come from where we always feel so pressured to have a hard-hitting, solid decision? You know? Because I find in my life, I am constantly saying, I don't know. Like,
Yep.
because I don't. There's just way too much. Like, I'm working on my freelance business as a life and faith coach. That's for those of you who want to know. That's also why I do a lot of referencing to the Bible and Christianity and stuff like that. But like, there's so much about, starting up my own business and being a freelancer that I don't know. It is actually scary because I'm like, well, if this doesn't work out, like, what am I going to do? Sort of thing, right? Um, I just cross my fingers and hope that I will land on my feet. But I'm constantly realizing that I just don't know things. So I don't understand how anyone could expect of me. I don't live in a community where I feel like people are trying to force me to make a strong decision. Sometimes I do have very strong decisions, very strong opinions because it's something I have, maybe researched a lot, or maybe because I have like a personal experience with it or something like that. And I'll be like, no, this is absolutely this. I don't think there's any form of evidence or anything that you can bring to me that will change my mind. Not because I'm like staunch on my decision, but because I see how much hurt or whatever it has been caused. So unless you can come up with something else that is like, oh no, it's not going to hurt anybody, like that is my opinion. But that is like far and few between. Like it's not, because there's just everything is just so complex. I don't usually have a very strong, you know, decision on most things. So like I don't understand why people feel like, unless again it is literally causing harm and something needs to happen.
Right.
Then that's when you're like putting your heads together and be like, no, we got to come up with some solution to stop this from happening, and then we can come up with a more feasible solution to you know so
Yeah, I mean, humanity is messy because even your comment about if this is causing harm,
hmm
that even that judgment
hmm
is very fraught these days, right? Like, I know in this country, um, there's talk about like certain books causing actual harm, right? And we need to ban them from the school because those are literally harming children. Now, I may disagree, but disagreeing isn't helpful. I need to understand what do you think the harm is, and can we back up and try to come to some kind of compromise? But it's difficult because people don't want to compromise on something that they believe is not compromisable, right? Um,
those are types of arguments that I'm just like, well, then you have to prove it, because if these books have existed for whatever and you have really no kind of proof indicating how they're harming other people, then you have no right to ban them until you can prove that, sort of thing.
yeah,
So
but
like,
I mean, but harm is can be very subjective, right? Like something that I believe is
that's
harmful,
true.
you can
hmm
believe is helpful, right? And so
Yeah.
now what do we do, right? And so
But
I
you
think
have to
it's just back
explain
to
that that's
right,
my
yeah,
point. So like if you're going to say these types of books are harmful, right? Okay, how? So prove this to me. What do you mean by these books are harmful? They're indoctrinating your kids? Okay, how? Because I'm thinking you probably read these books. So did they indoctrinate? Do you feel indoctrinated? They're probably going to say no because they don't want to seem like they're weak-minded. But anyways, the point is you've still got to explain it, right? You've got to have information behind this. Like we're not talking about just feelings and emotions, right? If you feel like they're harmful in whatever respect, like back it up. Let us know. Explain it to us. I'm open minded. I will listen to you. But like if you're just saying that they're harmful and then throw out off some rhetoric that doesn't have any kind of you know background, well then I'm sorry, but you don't really have a case, right? And I'm not even trying to be like legalistic behind it because yeah, I did study law, but like I'm talking about just in reality, we can't just be going all willy nilly by people's emotions. If you feel like this is a sin, this is what scientists do, right? They have a hypothesis, they might have a hypothesis or whatever, and then they try to prove it or disprove it or whatever the situation. I don't know. Listen, I'm not a scientist. I didn't study
Right.
but
Yeah.
so somebody would be like, "No, that's not how it works." Okay, fine, my bad. But anyways, the point is, you still have to be able to kind of back that up, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think if you guys want more information, go back to our archives. We had an episode just talking about facts and what is
mm-hmm,
a fact, because that even, this day and age, even what is a fact is fraught with debate. And so it
yeah,
leads to more of this intolerance, right? Because if something you say is a fact, I think is not a fact,
mm-hmm,
right?
yeah,
Now we're very intolerant of each other, right? Because not only are you wrong,
hmm,
but you are kind of crazy because you believe something that I believe is untrue, right?
right.
And so now
Hmm.
it's like we can't see eye to eye. So my
But
my
see, and
hope is
this
that
is
people learn how to. We need to get better at learning what is a fact, what is an opinion, and how to be okay with people having other opinions and sometimes other facts than us.
mhm. I think when it comes to tolerance, and just what you were talking about, like the difference between facts. There's this concept in the Bible, in like Acts, I think it was, where the new church was forming and stuff like that, and they were all basically Israelites, and they were saying that anybody who was going to be under this kind of banner, they had to um, be circumcised and all this other stuff, right? So I think that's in the book of Acts, I believe, or one of those, whatever. And until what's his name? Peter had this dream where the the
Of the
sheet came
basket, it was a
down and
clean
the
and unclean.
yeah, clean and unclean, and then God told him, "Don't call anything unclean that I haven't called unclean." And so when Paul was trying to say we should not put on them anything that these rules that were too heavy for even our forefathers to bear. um Peter told everybody of the dream, and he was like, basically, let's see let's see what happens. So that's one of those situations where tolerance actually comes into play. Okay, fine, let's not force them to be circumcised or whatever, and let's see what the outcome is, right? And it turned out that the outcome wasn't bad, because you can discuss it all you want, but you might not just have the information needed. Maybe you actually need time. But I think if you're going to err on the side of protecting a person, because that could also go the opposite way, where for example, during the Holocaust, where it appears that the U.S. was taking their dear sweet time, you know, um, that's like that's like the argument. So like you could kind of err on the fact of letting a bunch of people be destroyed before you make a decision. Oh, we should kind of intervene. Um, I think if you're going to err on the side of let's try to protect people until we kind of understand, and it not necessarily I'm not saying military wise, but like maybe just, let's see if we can get a ceasefire, a treaty, or something like that. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I don't know what the heck was going on, sort of thing. But what I'm saying is, try to treat people with dignity and respect. Try to treat them the way you would want to be treated, especially if you were in that situation. If you wouldn't want to be kind of pushed aside while somebody is trying to make up their mind about you, don't do that to other people. You know? So,
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, folks, let us know what you think about tolerance and extinction. Is tolerance extinction? I'm not sure. Well, I think I am sure that it's not, but I'm not sure what you think. Let us know. Leave us a comment. We love to read them and respond to them.
We do. Mhm.
We hope you come back and join us next time we do this live. We want to do it more often, so you guys can come
Yes.
join us, watch how the sausage gets made, I guess, and be interactive and join us in our conversation as we make these podcasts.
Yeah.
So I guess before we leave, Nate, anything you got going on you want to share with the folks? I know you said you're trying to kick back up some of the coaching stuff. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I really started focusing on that because I'm always telling people, bet on yourself. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm betting on myself. So I've been applying to jobs here in Switzerland, but my main focus is really getting my life coaching, faith coaching working. I've already worked with a number of people and with very positive results. I'm very happy to say that. Is like I'm really happy to see when people like you know really improve, get to where they want to go, sort of thing. So that's really what I'm focusing on. Actually, you can find my if you have my Instagram, I think. Oh no, our Instagram isn't up on here actually, but my Upwork. I'm on Upwork, and you can find me under Nathaniel King. Right?
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't got anything else going on in my life, mostly this. So, hey, make sure you guys keep tuned in here. Special shout
Yeah.
out to our Patreon supporters, our
Yeah.
visionary supporters, Babs, Kate, and Abby. Thank you guys so
Yes.
much. If anyone else would like to join that support group, go on over to patreon.com/unofficially opinionated and you can join. We've got 3 levels with different perks there. So it helps us keep this moving. Paying for different software and other things so we can kind of make more content for you. So if that's what you're about, we would love your support. If you can't do that or don't want to do that, or you just don't believe in Patreon, that's fine. It's okay. It's cool. Please, you can still like this video or the podcast, subscribe, share with your friends. And yeah, click notification bell on YouTube so you can also know when we have new stuff coming out.
Yeah.
We'll be doing more podcasts. We'll be doing more reactions coming up, and also some
Yes.
game streaming where we kind of play games and talk about whatever show we're watching or just our lives in general. So yeah,
Yeah.
stay tuned. More to come.
Yes.
We love it. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.